All right, let's now give you some breaking news that in fact just come in, where Russia reportedly has started to create a buffer zone along its border with Ukraine. The announcement was made by President Vladimir Putin during a meeting with government officials. Moscow has said that Russian troops are currently engaged in implementing this initiative, and the decision comes a day after President Putin visited the Kirkuk region. And Russia had regained full control of the Kirkuk region in late April following months of fighting by its troops.
As I said earlier, the decision to create a necessary buffer security zone along borders with Ukraine had been already made. Our armed forces are accomplishing this task now. Enemy firing points are being suppressed. The work is proceeding.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what this, of course, means, we're joined by Mr. Fred Weir, who's a senior journalist, and he's, of course, joining us live from Moscow. Mr. Weir, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. And let me, in fact, start off by asking you this. Now, this is an interesting bit of, report that comes forth where Putin has said that Russia is now engaged in the process of creating a buffer zone in Ukrainian territory. What is the message that Putin is trying to say with this?
So I think it's first of all to the Russian people who were, blindsided by that invasion of Kursk last year, the invasion of Russian territory. It created a lot of nervousness. And our constant Ukrainian drone and artillery attacks across the border on Russian towns and cities and military objectives. So this is Putin's statement, I think, that he will not let that sort of thing happen anymore. Secondly, I guess Russia is moving toward an end game in the Ukraine war, and they will want some kind of permanent situation if there's to be a ceasefire or peace settlement. Russia will want it to be on their terms, and I think buffer zones will be definitely a part of whatever final settlement is devised.
That's an interesting statement you're making, that towards the end game, the Russians would want to have buffer zones in Ukraine. Does this now mean that Vladimir Putin feels that he has conquered enough territory in Ukraine, and now, if he were to create these buffer zones, he can bring this war to an end? So is this a part of a plan by Vladimir Putin to now slowly inch towards bringing this war to an end?
Well, I think so, but I don't think it would be a unilateral Russian move to end the war. There are peace talks being scheduled now, maybe start in mid-June in the Vatican, perhaps. So there will be a process in which the two sides will negotiate and horse trade. And so I think that this buffer zone thing is part of that. The more territory, even temporary territory that Russia has, the bigger its bargaining chips in the negotiations. But in the meantime, I think they simply don't want to be blindsided by a sudden Ukrainian thrust into Russian territory as they were before.
This particular statement is a very strange sort of a statement that's come forth, that Russia is now creating buffer zones, which means that they may not want to conquer or capture more territory. How much do you think are reports that Donald Trump feels that Vladimir Putin is not interested in peace has prompted the Russian president to now put out a statement of this nature? Because Donald Trump, to a very large extent in the last 5 months, had been batting for peace with the Russians. He said that if he were to sit down with the Russian president, then the peace would be achieved in Ukraine. But the statement that was put out by Donald Trump, at least the reports that have come out, that the Russian president does not look interested in peace because he thinks that he's winning the war on the ground. So is there a message that Putin is now trying to give to Donald Trump?
Not in this case. I think the buffer zones are just along the Russian-Ukrainian border in the north, not along the main contact line between the two armies. In that respect, the Russians are still pressing forward, and they intend to continue pressing forward along the Donbass front, the Zaporozhye front. The war is still very much ongoing, but the buffer zones are to prevent any surprises in the north as did happen before.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Fred Weir, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.